I haven't figured out yet an outro to do for 2021, but I have figured out an intro that I'll be doing for 2021, and that is to stop announcing to you guys what my username is or what this video is about, because the title and all the information is basically right below me to give you guys that information. So yeah, that's one change right there. But yeah, other than that, finally getting back into the swing of things now, back on my vinyl collection part. This is part 6 of my vinyl collection. The only other thing to talk about, what's going to be playing in the background, and I've been really obsessing over this dude's work over the past couple of weeks, is Maynard Vale with his debut album, Body Count. This is just some dark, heavy, pulverizing, and dense industrial music that I feel like a lot of you guys who enjoy extreme metal particularly can really find a lot of enjoyment with it, because the percussions on here just bang so hard. It just sounds like metal smacking against metal. It is such a banger of an album. Tracks I really enjoy a lot are Bleak, From Body to Body, Silent Blood, and my personal favorite is The Advisor. Such a banger. And, you know, I'm showcasing you this not only because it's a good album, but mainly because re-looking back at a lot of these parts so far, the 5 previous ones, every part I do 15 records I showcase, and like 10 out of the 15, if not even more, are just particularly and just specifically black metal related in some way, to the point that, my god, I listen to way too much black metal, and I've been just focusing more and more lately on buying music for my collection that isn't just metal. But yeah, this is definitely an industrial record that a lot of you metal fans will definitely enjoy, just because particularly of how dense and dark of an industrial record it comes off sounding like. Alright, with all that out of the way, let's finally continue back on with my vinyl collection, finishing up on the A's and finally moving on to the next letter, B, during the latter half of this video. But finishing up with the A's, we started off with the debut album by Asalyssa, In Total Contempt of All Life. I feel like when we talk about ancient record bands, the first one that's going to be brought up is Asalyssa. It's the fan favorite, and I feel like what makes it so good and why it's my personal favorite as well, it's the one black metal project within Soirée de Pouce, hopefully again I'm saying that dude's name right, catalog that just feels like the most traditional. It's not like it's trying to do anything new. And for, you know, albums that came out around 2014, I believe, it just sounds like something that came out 20 years prior, back in like 1994. And because of its just traditional sound for black metal, I feel like that's why it's won over the hearts of so many black metal fans. And with this album right here, though not my favorite, I do feel like if you are looking for more of the aggressive approach with that kind of like second wave, you know, early 90s, you know, sound of black metal, especially with the Norwegian and Swedish black metal scene, you can definitely find a lot to enjoy with this particular album. As for the layout, really not much to showcase here. It's really bare bones. I'm pretty sure this is the second press because there is no label information on the back, and I know with the first press and the third press, I'm fairly certain is through Purity Through Fire. I guess that just, you know, eliminates the possibilities that I got the second press a couple of years ago through a Discogs purchase and was definitely worth it. But yeah, other than that, it's on plain black vinyl, and it does come in a gatefold with just artwork and lyrics to go along with it. Moving on next to my personal favorite of Azelisassath, that'd be his second album, Evil Manifestations Against Mankind. Yes, guys, in a video I did a couple, not a couple of months ago now, like maybe 7 or 8 months ago, goddamn time flies, I had a video which was my top 25 all-time favorite black metal albums, and this was in my top 10. And it surprised a lot of you guys, I noticed, that with that video of my all-time favorite black metal albums, a huge portion of it were black metal albums that were done by the previous decade. And it seems like when we do lists like that of all-time best, there's like this unwritten rule that they have to be the first ones that ever came out, like the early 90s are like, you know, the only real black metal albums. Anything, you know, after that, fuck that, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, please, enough with that fucking mindset. That's such a basic bitch mindset to have with, you know, talking about personal favorites. I mean, I even say it in the video and in the title, it's my favorite. So I don't know really why that bothers people so much, but anyway, yeah, it's one of my personal favorites because it just feels and sounds, and I mean, hell, it even looks like an album, again, that came out during, like, you know, the black metal second wave heyday of like 1992 to 1994, but it's just, there's so much more to it. There's something just so menacing and evil about this album, and I think one of the standout parts about it is not only Sorry to Pooh's just phenomenal songwriting that he does with, you know, the guitar riffs and atmosphere and tone with this album, but it's the only Azalysasath album that doesn't have Sorry to Pooh on vocals. It's another guy, which I don't know his name, but his shrieks and croaks are just so, it sends shivers down my spine, and it's just so cold and evil sounding to the bone. And I think that's what really propels this album to just such, you know, a sound of just a menacing, vicious black metal just treat to the ears that time and time again, no matter how many times I listen to it, I just fall in love with it time and time again. That if you want to get the best of Azalysasath, and I feel like a lot of people can agree with me here, strongly recommend starting out with Evil Manifestations Against Mankind. As for the layout, it's really bare bones, and the jacket is insanely thin along with the LP itself, but that's something I would expect from a darker than black pressing. I mean, a lot of people like that label because, I mean, it has some decent bands, but man, when it comes to their packaging, especially around like the 2010s, like, it is just flimsy, it's thin, it's not really the best quality, and yeah, other than that, the only other thing to state with it is that this is a first press because of it, and I know, and I think, I can't promise you, Purity Through Fire did do represses of all the Azalysasath records. So if you want to get this record, I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure that label still carries copies. The only other thing to showcase here is a lyric sheet that just basically has song titles, a picture of the guy, and yeah, that's about it. Then I have the third album by Asalyssa. This is Total Desecration of Existence. Personally, for me, this is my least favorite because the two previous albums had that cold, evil atmosphere that Azalysasath just really made his own. Even though he was borrowing a lot of influence, he just owned it so perfectly. This album, he's just going on the offense all the time. And riffs are more melodic, they aren't as atmospheric, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't really click with me like the previous two albums. It's still a solid effort. I'm still glad I got it, and it's still worthy of checking out. But I would say this isn't the place to start out with this band, just personally for me. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty sure this is a first press because on the backside right here with that awesome band picture, there's no kind of like label logos anywhere, so I'm fairly certain this is the first press. The only other thing to showcase here is that the LP jacket is in a printed inner sleeve. Really cool band picture once again. And lyrics and track titles on the other side, and as you would guess, on a standard plain black vinyl. And the final thing of my Azalysasath collection, along with the final band of the A portion of my collection, is the latest thing Azalysasath put out, which is an EP, Pastimes of Eternal Downfall. This is a pretty solid EP, not really much to say about it as it's just two tracks, that being Upon the Vertex of Downfall and of Eternal Ancient Blood. Now, again, it's just two tracks, solid stuff, not as aggressive as the previous album, kind of going back with the whole evil atmosphere that really a lot of people enjoy about this band. The only thing that kind of feels like a waste is, you know, you're spending like 15 bucks on an EP for two tracks. Now, yes, on the backside right here, it does showcase 4 tracks, but again, it's just the promo versions of the 2 tracks I just said. So it's like, it says 4, but it's really 2. There's really no difference at all between the promo version and the regular version. But yeah, Purity Through Fire still has loads of copies available, and I think it's definitely worth getting for it. Because Azalysasath, as of right now, has just been pretty spot on within their discography as of yet. Other than the packaging, I just showed you front and the back side of it, but it does come in a printed inner sleeve lyrics and track listings on one side and another really killer looking band photo on the other. Next up is a record pertaining to an original soundtrack, that being the soundtrack to the movie The Babadook. While I am aware that yes, obviously this is a vinyl update and I'm mostly going to talk about the music at hand here, let me just sidetrack for a minute and say that I absolutely love this movie right here. That The Babadook is more of like a, yes, it is considered a horror movie, but it's more of a thriller psychological horror movie that works just so well. And I know a lot of people complain that the kid is annoying or you don't get a good look of the Babadook, and that's just so, disappointing of that. And I say to that, you may suffer from this syndrome called the basic bitch horror fan syndrome, and I highly recommend going to the doctors because of it, because you're totally missing the point and the context of this movie if that's your complaints with it. Like, the whole substance and plot just went right over your head if that's what you dislike about this movie. And that's what I think really works so well about it, and maybe that's why I'm like such a sucker for psychological horror movies. They make you just think for just a few seconds, and if a movie can do that, it has like a longer lasting experience, I feel like, than just your typical, blood, guts, gore, hacker slash horror movie that I'm just really not all that crazy for. But anyway, as for the music on this, it's really nothing all that special. It's more just like background music that I feel like is obviously better affiliated when you watch the movie with it, that has more of like ambience and kind of like dark, orchestral music being played. Nothing that, special. But the packaging and just the fact that this was put out was really the selling point for me. Because for one, I love the layout. It's just identical to the book that you'll see if you watch this movie of The Babadook. Backside, really basic, just, track listings. But the coolest thing about this was the gatefold that really, again, has a strong grasp on just the book itself within the movie. The gatefold has a pop-out of the Babadook and a line within the movie that says, if it's in a word or if it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook. Love this packaging so much. Oh, and the other thing I forgot to showcase to you guys is the LP itself. It comes on this black and white swirl. Pretty sure it's still available in some distros. From there, we continue on right back to more black metal. Next up is, I believe, the third full length by Baise Ma Hache, and my personal favorite, Vivre du Chaos. I'll admit, for the longest time, I really didn't care for Baise Ma Hache, which is ironic now because I'm starting to lose a lot more interest with them over the past couple of months. But anyway, backtracking a bit here. Yeah, I really wasn't that crazy for them from the start, which might surprise some of you guys, because you would figure since I'm this big diehard Pest Noir fan, I would automatically enjoy Baise Ma Hache from the get-go. And that's the problem I had with them, is that, well, as Pest Noir has, with their golden years, had all the ambition and experimentation going with them, it just felt like Baise Ma Hache was like, yeah, let's, be, influenced by it, but all that experimentation and ambition, toss that aside and just be aggressive. Like, that's just how Baise Ma Hache always came off to me. It's just like the aggressive Pest Noir, but you gotta get rid of all that, creativity that Pest Noir carries on. And that's just the thing about Baise Ma Hache. It's just, that's what they just don't have. But I guess after being bullied by my friend Richard, he really, recommended strongly that I instead check out Vivre du Chaos. And after checking out this particular album, I gotta say, it clicked with me from the get-go. I think what I really enjoy about this particular album compared to the other Baise Ma Hache albums is that, just kind of like how the artwork implies, every part of this album feels like a very militant, marching band. No matter what pace the album's going, whether it's slow, mid-pace, or fast, I just always feel like there's this marching band type of feel going on with this album, and it just feels very aggressive, you know, brash and in your face the whole time. Because there's one part in this album, I don't know if it's the second track, I'm not going to even dare try to pronounce these tracks as they're in French, that it's like this guy begging for his life, and you hear the shotgun get loaded up, and as the shotgun blast comes on, the guy screams on top of it, and just every time that gets my blood going so much. Like, that is just such a highlight within this album. And for me personally, out of everything Baise Ma Hache has done, this is easily hands down their magnum opus. As for the layout and packaging, I just showed you the front and back, but it does come on a standard black vinyl, I believe limited to 300 copies, along with an A2 poster, which looks pretty cool, of the band logo and one of the skull soldiers with the album title. Looks really cool. Next up is some more Baise Ma Hache. Once again, this is their EP, Vivi, mort, that I remember I was getting a lot more of the Baise Ma Hache catalog after listening to Vivre du Chaos, thinking that, man, if that album's that good, then obviously they're going to keep continuing on with that pace and writing and progress to be better as we keep going into the later years. And this EP is just honestly okay. Like, you know, what I complained about earlier, like they're trying to sound like Peste Noire, but just the more aggressive version, that basically is the only description you need with this EP. Like, there's just nothing about it that really stands out to me all that much. It's just like, literally just think of Peste Noire, but all the Gallic folk, all the ambition, all the experimentation, just get rid of that and just replace it with aggression, and you have Baise Ma Hache. Because, I don't know, I can't really remember a thing about this EP. It's just aggressive black metal, and that's basically it. As for the layout, you got artwork backside with the track listing, limited to 300 copies, hand numbered. I got number 232 out of 300. Also comes with an insert sheet. You got artwork on one side, other side is lyrics along with track titles with a guy holding an axe. Pretty sure Baise Ma Hache in French stands for, or translates I should say, to kiss my axe, and it's also slang for fuck my axe. You know, a little French language lesson right there from yours truly. And the LP variant comes on white with black splatter. As you can tell right now, I was quite on the high with buying Baise Ma Hache stuff, because next up is another Baise Ma Hache record. This is their fourth album, Fiert, that, as you can see, this is the wooden box set version of it. And I know in my previous video of my top 10 highest selling discog records, this was in that video. I think it was like second at like $250+ like a ridiculous amount. And when it comes to box sets within this series, if it's a box set pertaining to just one album, I'll talk about it. But box sets that I own that pertain to multiple albums, I'll have like my own separate video for that. But yeah, I wanted to talk about this mainly because of the music and all the cool content it comes within this box set. But really, I would say this is a really solid effort by Baise Ma Hache. Nothing new or different, but the overall tone and writing and just sonically sound of it has like such a strong rebellious feel to it, whether it's the vocals or the writing or the guitar riffs on here. There's just like this smidge of like a punk influence that really enhances the overall rebellious attitude within this album. They did overall a solid effort with this, and I feel like personally one of the last real true great efforts by the band. Now, as you can clearly see, this is the wooden box set, so you open the hatch up like so, and it comes with a lot of cool goodies. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. So obviously you have the LP. Here's the original artwork for it. Backside put out through Hammerbolt. Comes on a gatefold. Love that gatefold photo of one of the French mountain elves. Comes with a booklet, lyrics, and pictures to go along with everything. Printed inner sleeve, just the band logo and symbol, both on each side. And this is the special edition version of this box set that comes on a gold and black marble, limited to 66 copies. A last minute addition they added was a poster basically of the artwork but expanded upon. And the final thing to show is a 4x4 flag of the band logo and just artwork, very similar to that of the booklet I showed earlier. And the final thing I have that is Baise Ma Hache related is their latest album from last year, and it's a collaboration. That being the collab between Baise Ma Hache and Paul Wagner, the Pale Riders. Now, this is an album that I have such mixed reactions about, and that's already a huge red flag from the start, because see, when I got this album in the mail and I played it for the first time, it's a huge red flag for me personally when I'm like, about it from the start, because I hate to admit this to you guys, but when I listen to any album, regardless of genre, regardless of who it is, first listen I usually pay attention to all the things I enjoy about the album, and then when I get to listen, 2, 3, and etc., that's where I start steadily noticing the things I don't like about an album. So on a first listen, to already give me like this mixed reaction about it, that's a huge red flag, because the more I listen to this album, the more I'm disliking it, because I feel like the biggest thing I really can't stand about it is, like, I feel like Baise Ma Hache is so lost on what they're trying to be right now. Like, yeah, it's like this whole outlaw country vibe being intertwined with their black metal, and yes, I can understand to an extent that they're trying to be rebellious, especially with the previous album I just talked about. But the execution and pacing of this album is just so goddamn odd. Like, you'll get the black metal sound of Baise Ma Hache, then just these abrupt transitions of outlaw country come out of nowhere and Paul Wagner starts singing. Like, it's just such an odd pacing album where everything just feels so jammed together that nothing has like any space to breathe or really, have like these kind of like tasteful transitions. Just, it feels so jam-packed that, I don't know, just Baise Ma Hache seems so lost with this album for me personally. So I can't really say that I'll be having this in my collection anytime soon, because I would definitely say this is quite the weak output by the band as of late. But other than that, the layout's really cool, because I know Baise Ma Hache always likes doing, above and over layouts with all their LP pressings. So I'll just show you that. So you have the front right here, really like the spot gloss on the album title. Backside with track listings, and of course there's got to be a border with it, because you're not black metal if you don't have a border. As well too, comes with a booklet very similar to that of the previous Baise Ma Hache booklet, of just lyrics and artwork to go along with everything. Printed inner sleeve, side A, side B, and this LP variant comes on yellow with black splatter, limited to 175 copies. Earlier in this video I talked about Asalyssa Sath, as it was one of the many bands that was a part of the whole ancient record bands craze. Well, within my collection I do have other bands that are a part of that, that also being Bekëth Nexëhmü with his EP, all that stuff at the bottom. Another band, yes, within that whole ancient record bands craze, done by Swarty the Puth. And what sells a lot of people about this band, and it's rumored, is that supposedly everything by Bekëth Nexëhmü, every record from start to finish, is all improvised, which is really hard to believe, because all of this just sounds so well coordinated and tight and very well executed that it just, I don't know, I just don't buy it. Something that sounds this good is just improvised on the spot. I don't know about that, but regardless, it's just overall really solid atmospheric black metal that I feel like people who really enjoy the Paysage d'Hiver demos can definitely find a lot of attachment and enjoyment with any of the Bekëth Nexëhmü releases. But this is the only thing I have of this band so far. I know, once again, I'm pretty sure it was Purity Through Fire that did the represses for this, along with other releases by Bekëth Nexëhmü, which I'm really not in a rush to get, because as good as it is, it just, again, as I stated, it's just really, if you're a Paysage Vivre fan, you'll find a lot of enjoyment with it, and it's just cold, atmospheric black metal, simply put. But one thing I always laugh at about Bekëth Nexëhmü releases is the artwork. Look it up. Literally all the releases are identical to this. This dark, ominous picture of a forest with trees covered in snow, and that's it. Like, they literally all look identical, that I find it impossible to tell someone your favorite Bekëth Nexëhmü release, because you're probably just going to tell them, oh yeah, it's that record with the, you know, trees covered in snow. Like, literally all the releases look identical to this. From there, there's even more black metal, that being The Black, with their debut album, The Priest of Satan. Arguably one of the best black metal albums ever made. That is, you know, a bold statement, but arguably something that you can attach it with this album, because it just has such a strong fan base, and it's really just lasted throughout the years as just such a respected album that just carries the whole traditional black metal sound, but just written really well. I know as well too, this is another album that on my video, my top all-time favorite black metal albums list, this was a part of it, but I believe I placed it at what, like number 22 or something. But seriously, it's definitely one of those 10 out of 10 albums that deserves all the respect that it gets. As well too, what is it? It's all composed by, John from Dissection was a part of this band. And he contributes, obviously, I believe, the guitars and vocals on this album, but it's just way more raw and nowhere as melodic or as fast-paced as Dissection, but just carries that dark, evil, you know, raw atmosphere that we're really mostly used to with black metal with this release. Another thing too I really enjoy about it is not only is that it's raw, but also catchy and pulverizing. But towards the last couple of tracks on this album, he incorporates keyboards and really enhances the atmosphere to a whole new level to really captivate the outro within this album. As for the layout, this is a Osmos repress, which Godspeed to this label for always doing represses, and they did a phenomenal job with it. So you have the artwork, which stays true to the original, backside with track listings, and of course it wouldn't be true black metal without some goofy band pics. Comes with a printed inner sleeve right here, side A, side B. I love the spot gloss, and it says what? Fuck off and die in hell. Again, true black metal. And this is the limited edition on blood red vinyl, pretty sure limited to 500 copies. Next up is one of the oddballs within my collection, and finally something that's not black metal. And speaking of which, the rest of this part has no black metal. Finally getting out of that and talking about other genres now. Next up is the Black Mountain Transmitter with Black Goat of the Woods. This surprisingly has gotten a lot of attention for being such an abnormal sounding musical album. Like, there's elements of drone, dark ambience, electronics, synth. Like, it's a very bizarre sounding album. Like, nothing about this record is linear. Nothing has like a point A to point B. Like, it just stretches out in so many different directions that it just weirds me the fuck out no matter how many times I listen to it. But even with that being said, it feeling like, you know, it's just tripping over its own feet with all these sounds and textures coming in and out, there's like this odd sense of like of a direction that it's going with that it just feels so alien-like. Like, I've always told my friends this and they agree with me. It's basically an album that sounds as if you're communicating with aliens. Like, as weird as that sounds, like, it's just such a mind fuck. And because of that, it going to just such great lengths to do that, I can't help but admire it and listen to it on rare occasions. But that being said, it's not really an album I listen to all that much, not because it's boring, but it just it will genuinely trip me out to the point that it almost scares me a bit, that I feel like I wish I would have like an eyes in the back of my head to give me comfort, because I feel like something creepy and ominous is just watching me from a distance, and I just get such discomfort with this album that it's an experience of an album, and that's why I think it deserves all the high praise that it gets. But yeah, quite the oddball within my collection. I was stunned to see that there was an LP variant for this, because for the longest time it was only like cassette, exclusive, and that's it. As for the layout, you have this really trippy looking artwork. I like kind of like that fuzzy border they got going on at the edge of it that just makes it all the more trippy looking. Backside with just artwork put out through Aurora Recordings back in 2018. I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty sure the Bandcamp still has copies of this. And other than that, I don't know why I feel like just showing you it just comes on plain black vinyl. Next up is one of the very few traditional heavy metal albums I have within my collection, that being Black Viper with Hellions of Fire. And if there is one thing I have learned about enjoying, traditional heavy metal and speed metal, which there is a bit of speed metal influence within this album, is the cheesier, tackier the album artwork is, the better the album's going to be when talking about traditional heavy metal. And this is one of the cases, because for one, I think the album artwork looks ugly as fuck, but the riffs and overall music within this album is awesome as fuck. Tracks on here like Metal Blitzkrieg and Quest for Power just have such an infectious melody going on through here that just feels so, again, beefy and stuff that you'll want within traditional heavy metal, with just a flair of speed metal to give off that speed and aggression that you'll want. Just overall really good writing that I feel like traditional heavy metal fans will have no problem whatsoever enjoying this. Other than that, the only other thing to talk about is the overall layout here. Was put out through High Roller Records. That one thing I've learned is that if you want to get into collecting traditional heavy metal and speed metal LPs, High Roller Records is a phenomenal record label to check out. Other than that, you have this butt ugly artwork, backside with track listings on the top. Comes with a flyer for High Roller Records, a lyric sheet along with a band photo on the other side. Single LP, this comes on a semi-translucent like teal baby blue color, and the final piece is an A3 poster of the artwork. Coming up now on the last two records within this part, and both of them are soundtracks. First one up is from my favorite movie of the previous decade, hands down, that being Blade Runner 2049, the original motion picture soundtrack. Everything about this movie is perfection. It is just pure eye candy from start to finish. Some of the best special effects I've ever seen in my life. That, man, they really kept it true with the original and made it feel like a correct way to do a sequel without it kind of deviating from what's important from the original source material. Just everything about this movie I just absolutely loved. As for the soundtrack, it's actually overall really good, of a mixture of industrial electronics to give off that futuristic vibe. But if I had to pick, the soundtrack of the original Blade Runner is far superior, and I've yet to get that. But I found this at a Newberry Comics for a discounted price and had to pick it up. That I think really what just sold me about is just the fact that it's the Blade Runner soundtrack of the Blade Runner 2049. One last note I'll add when talking about this soundtrack is I feel like side A and B, the first half of it, have more of what we're kind of used to with a Blade Runner sound, of it having like that very futuristic, very electronic driven type of nightclub vibe that just feels like you're hitting it on the middle of the city in the year of 2049, that I feel like people who enjoyed the first Blade Runner movie's soundtrack can find a lot of enjoyment with the first half of it, whereas the second half, side C and D, have more of like that dreary, dreadful, dystopian sound to it that feels more urgent and more of a grandiose finale sound to it, I feel like. But overall, awesome soundtrack from easily my favorite film from the previous decade, the soundtrack to Blade Runner 2049. And the final record for this collection part is the soundtrack to the only anime I've really ever enjoyed. Obviously, that being the Berserk anime from 1997. And let me address the elephant right off the bat in the room. That being that, no, this soundtrack does not have Tell Me Why by the Pen Pals, as that is a song by the band and not actually by, you know, the soundtrack, the original soundtrack to Berserk. So no, I cannot listen to Put Your Glasses on this LP right here. Just want to address that right from the beginning. But what it does have is all just the legendary sounds and music you'll get from the 1997 Berserk. Obviously, you have the track Ghost and Murder, Gats, Bailet, and obviously that wonderful track that has that woman going, oh, like just, I had to get this. I remember when Tiger Lab announced that they're putting out the LP for the original soundtrack to Berserk. I had to get this. I didn't care if I had to pull an all-nighter or refresh my phone every 10 seconds. This was a must-get because I know this is the second pressing, which is identical to the first, only a little difference, which I'll showcase in a second. Because the original press, or they had like this VIP press, and that was on like this blood gut splatter, which I've never seen a picture of, is like exclusive limited to like 100 copies or something. Then they had the regular LP variant of like, it was limited to 500, I'm pretty sure it was on red, and that sold out within a blink of an eye. Like if you think Go to War's releases sell out within a blink of an eye, the first press of this went out even faster. So I just had such urgency to get the second press when they announced it, which went up like a week later. And the layout and the packaging and everything for this, although bare bones, is just something that Berserk fans will absolutely love. So yeah, keeping that going with the layout. You have the artwork, backside with the track listings, picture of Guts. As I stated, it's just really bare bones with the packaging. Doesn't really come with much, but I had to get this LP variant because it's on the White Hawk edition, limited to 300 copies. Come on, this is easily the best vinyl pressing edition of all of them, just because it's the White Hawk edition. Alright guys, that's it for this vinyl collection part. Like always, I'll leave links provided to everything along with what was playing in the background in the description below. And yeah, that is it. Still haven't figured out an outro for 2021, so until then, have a good day.